this is Runa, and you're listening to the Changemakers podcast, where we share tips, insight, tools, and stories from other changemakers designed to motivate you to become the change you want to see in your world. Make sure you join our Changemakers community at runamagnus.com/podcast. And now, this is your time to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever it is in your time zone. Runa here, the CEO and host of the Changemakers podcast, with a beautiful woman, talking to her right from my office here in Iceland to Atlanta in America. And I want to tell you about Angela Raub. I hope I have you right.
You're saying it correctly, Raub. Yes, it's Hungarian.
Yeah, it's Hungarian. Thank you. I just all of a sudden thought, oh my God, I have to say her name correctly. I just want to tell you a little bit before I start to drill into what Angela has to share with us. But she's something else, actually, this woman. I mean, she's been featured on Good Morning America. She's been written about her in the US News and the World Report. And she is really a true Renaissance woman, both professionally and personally. What she is doing, this is going to blow your head off, because she is one of those women that, yeah, she has a background in BA in communications and business, and she has an MBA degree, and she's been working both in the university level on programs that has to do with Atlantic scholarships. She is athletic because she goes out and runs, but she is doing other things because over the past 13 years, she has been working on wealth management. She is now working in a company called Leaders Cast, which I don't know if you checked out or not, but if you have not, I highly recommend that you go and check it out, because it just blew me away when I went into their website and I saw what sort of the level of leadership that they're showcasing and helping us to tap into is phenomenal. Now, what Angela is doing today as the chief sales officer of LeaderCast, she and her team are working very hard, and I think I can for sure said passionately working with her team to expand their global footprint, striving to fill the world with leaders worth following. Isn't that fantastic? Welcome, awesome. Angela.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here, and I love your passion and your spirit. And just when we met over the phone, thank you, because I am drawn to that, and it's so genuine. And thank you for all you're doing to change the world as well.
Oh, well, here's the thing. And that's one of the things that I'm dying to hear from you, because I believe that both of us, we have that strong belief that one person can change the world, but they would never change the world unless it has other people with them.
Absolutely.
So you can be leading something, but you need that collaboration to really make it stand out in the world. I want to drill just into my first question, because I know my audience are dying to hear your tips, insights, tools, and stories so that they can become leader that is worth following. And that brings me to my first question.
Sure.
When do you know that you are a leader that is worth following?
It's interesting that you say that. I think that people in particular know and have those junctures in our life. And you and I got to know each other a little bit prior to our time here on the cast. I grew up in the Midwest in the United States, and I grew up on a farm. And my father grew up on a large farm. I was on a very small working farm. And I've worked since I've been 4. And people are like, oh my gosh, what does that entail? And obviously my parents were not taskmasters, although they sort of were. But we sold eggs. And so my brother and I would go out early in the morning and collect eggs. And he was 3 years older. And so I would push the wheelbarrow, the wagon, but I was the sales girl. and I had blonde curly hair, and he'd send me up there, but no one ever said no. And so I think that it was a confidence. It was a knowing that I can go in and do this. And an older brother sat in back and said, you go do that. And I remember at a very young age, my father became an executive. He was first generation college in the auto industry, but he took me aside and said, I want you to know that you have a gift. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you want to learn that anybody you talk to realizes that you're just trying to understand them. And he tried to impart in me that being a chronic learner and being compassionate and empathetic would actually be my greatest asset as a leader. And which is why I'm always just passionate to hear everybody's story, because from that, we truly become better leaders. And from being a better leader is when we make the world a better place, and we truly can instill impactful, sustainable change that will never be taken out through hate or anger or anything like that.
Yeah. So does that mean that you will know that you are a leader worth following when you have found that thing inside of yourself that you feel, here's my purpose, this is who I am, and you're authentically sharing that? Yeah.
Yes, I think that. And you know, it's interesting. I'm preparing a keynote on positive leadership. And my family will also tease me that the glass could have this much in it. And I'm like, that thing is almost full. Not even half, but like this much. And I'm like, if you look at it from the right angle, it's full. But that optimistic spirit. But I think that I've gleaned over the years is in being a people pleaser and being such a caretaker and wanting the world to be different is I also had to realize that I could only do that effectively as a leader if I knew wholeheartedly and authentically who I am. Mm-hmm. I must take care of myself as a leader, which my self-care is where I struggled for a bit. Mm-hmm. But once I realized that harnessing my true power and taking care of myself gave me the greatest strength to have the greatest impact, lasting impact on my surroundings and hopefully on the teams that I'm leading as well. And now to be at an organization that I fell in love with 7 years ago when I was at a host site watching LeaderCast. Now, and my CEO at the time said, this is what you need to be doing, but don't leave. And so I end up here at LeaderCast, and I get to take my passion on a daily basis and love and care for a team of amazing people that are passionate about changing the world. And we do that every single day. And so it's about, you talk about harnessing and being authentic and knowing what really you're passionate about, but also caring for yourself in order to then have greater trajectory with that passion. Because if you're not doing that, you'll run out of energy. And that's a point in my career I did that, where I had to take some time to fill back up and take care of myself.
Yeah. And I think that thing about taking care of yourself is probably, well, this is what I often hear. Am I not being selfish if I am just taking care of myself? Can you elaborate with us? What do you see as, what is the difference between taking care of yourself in an unselfish way?
Thank you very much. It's a great question, because in learning that, I had an amazing coach who taught me about, he said I was a Lamborghini that was built without a gas tank gauge. And so he said, you don't even know when you're on zero. And so I was like, wow, because I'm a visual learner, and I love cars. So I was like, oh my gosh, that makes total sense. So I visualize when my tank is getting below a quarter of a tank and the light goes on, because for a very long time I would drive with the light probably screaming, or the car was actually stopped. But I have so much personal passion that it fueled the car for a while. But to your point, you can't lead yourself successfully or effectively to have impact on the world and the teams and the life that you live in our communities if we're not doing that. And it did feel selfish for a long time, but I love the fact as an extrovert that I know on weekends when I don't have to talk, that I am filling back up my tank. And that has become such a peaceful, calm lake is what I visualize inside myself.
It really sounds like the awareness of, hey, yeah, now it's time for me to, if I'm going to be able to drive my Lamborghini, I do need to actually put a good fuel into it. Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think this is something that most of us are quite aware of, and we know we should, but there is something holding us back. Can you share with us what made you really go into that space of, I am going to honor myself? I'm gonna.
Here we go. We're going to get real. So at the height of my career, was working for an amazing company, was recruited by the CEO who was a classmate in my EMBA class at the height of my earning. And I'll never forget, was building a hotel in South Beach in Florida, in Miami. And I was in a Valentine's night on business in Miami, penthouse hotel room with a jacuzzi on top, sitting there by myself, looking over the city and thinking, what am I doing? And from there, I took a jump into not-for-profit. The CEO thought I was crazy because he said, you've got equity in multiple hotels. You're leaving. I can't believe this. And I love the company. I love him. I still do work with them. But I had to stop. And I went through a gut-wrenching time. I did consulting to support myself as a single parent. And I slowed the car down. And I started really looking at everything in the car. Mm-hmm. And there were things that I had to change. And I needed to find what I talk about all the time is that lake in the center, which is my soul. And I was throwing rocks in there and the waves were going, or I was driving a boat in there and the wake was crazy. And I needed to self-protect and make sure that I live a life that is always very calm and very flat and serene. Because if you skip a rock across that, I can learn more from that because it's with intent for the learning process. It's design. Whereas I was letting everything else affect that. And so I had to get that center for myself. I did meditation, prayer, all sorts of things, looked at different ways to calm down. And people, I mean, for a while thought I was probably like, what are you doing? You were at the height of your career. My father, very successful. My brother, very successful. Thought I was a little, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And now, Runit, all these years, 5 years later, it makes complete sense because I was resting to come here to make far greater global impact than I could by building hotels for a great company. Now I get to truly impact and try to make change that's significant and lasting in our world.
Wow. Yeah. How true is then when I'm listening to you, I think of the phrase, the universe will always show you what you need to experience in order to go where you should really go, and you true purpose lies.
Yeah. Yes. And here's during that time frame when I took this time off just to kind of recalibrate, I was out running and I was going across a crosswalk in the yellow part of the street, and I had my headphones in and I'm watching a woman and I see she has her cell phone and she's going to turn right. And so I start walking across because I have the right of way, and you're not going to believe it. She actually floored her car and turned right and hit me. And it literally, I was trying to not go under her big truck.
Oh gosh.
And so I was holding on to the top of the hood screaming.
Yeah.
And then when she finally realized she was hitting me, then she slammed on the brakes, and so that I flipped off, but I was thrown into oncoming traffic, but thank goodness they were stopped because it was rush hour. And you talk about that, but people always tease me that my moments in life have to be like hit by a car, and that for me was also part of that time where I felt like someone was saying stop, and it's going to be abrupt. And it was that impactful for me. And I know that I had to get to that peaceful moment because I have to hit the world like the car hit me. I have to make that much impact. And by imparting that on our teams and empowering them and empowering people that are listening here today, we can make change. Yeah. Each of us on this right now can make significant positive change. And if we don't believe that, we're fooling ourselves or we're just not up for the task. Children can make change. Look at the viral videos about bullying, cyberbullying, and things like that. Yeah. Far more children are making impact on our world because they know how some of us are treating others is not right. Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And that makes me go to maybe a big question, but it's a question that I like to ask because I can just feel it in my bones. I get goosebumps when I listen to you. What would you say is the biggest change that you want to see in this world? And where do you see your role in that change?
That just made me so emotional. So another thing, a little background, I'm a single parent and I've raised my daughter. She's now 25, living in New York City in the East Village, and this strong, independent woman. And by being a parent, you see the impact that you can have. And I tell people all the time, children are our truest form of marketing. If you want to really look at someone, meet their kids, right? Because that's an extension of how that person is outside of the office, outside of their audience. And so when I look at her, I think, wow, that's my greatest success. So I take that, and you talk about our ability to make change, and I look at her heart, and I look at her marching in New York, and I look at her as this strong woman, and know that through that concerted effort to raise a human being who is compassionate and empathetic and loving and a hardworking professional that's impacting the world, if we can do that in our home, how can we not take where we work more outside of our home and realize that the multiplication of those efforts can be far greater if it's that intentional and that concentrated in our daily lives, in our jobs, in our interactions in our community. That's where we're outside of our home far more. Can truly make it resonate for people. Oh my gosh, I can be a change maker. My choice to be positive today can affect 10 people. And from there, 10 people go out. In our office, Rena, we have a couple that's married, and I watch them walk to their car every night and think, did we provide a work environment that two people get in their car, and are they going to be positive to each other? Are they going to be negative to each other? It's not even till they get home. It's immediately when they get in the car of what is that experience like? And as leaders, we have that responsibility. What you're doing here to expand messages through amazing, putting that stone across my calm lake, and you're making more ripple effect. Thank you.
Oh,
you're making a difference.
Thank you so much. And Angela, I would like to ask you so many other questions, but I think I see our time is up. We have to do this again. And now you have really inspired me even more to do whatever I can do and see if the Changemakers can't make it to the LeaderCast conference in Atlanta later this year. Because I think that is, from what I've seen, that is an experience that no one that wants to become or sees themselves as a changemaker or wants to become a changemaker to go not miss. That's the leadercast.com, isn't it?
Leadercast.com, and you can watch it live. So we could simulcast, and we do around the world to 800 host sites, and love for you to come live. But for anyone that's listening to this and you want amazing, rich leadership content that is extremely cost efficient, And that's what I love about our mission here is we provide deep, enriched, and impactful leadership content that you can afford across your organization or your community. You can use it to raise monies for not-for-profits. However we can partner with you, we're here to change the world and fill the world with leaders worth following.
Thank you. I think that's perfect to end that way. Thank you so much, Angela. Keep making your magic.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Was this podcast of value for you? I sure hope so. If so, feel free to share the love and give us your generous review on iTunes or Stitcher. And remember that you can always go to runemagnus.com to find out more about the Changemakers and how we can help you drive the change you want to see in your world.